Texan fans, you got exactly what you prayed for. Bobby Slowik is out. He is no longer the offensive coordinator for your Houston Texans. So we break down that move and also our offensive coordinator expectations moving forward.
He gone.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Battle Red Nation, you guys have had some good days and some bad days, but today is one of those days. I'm sure everybody is excited. Welcome to today's show. We are your Texans Credential Media members, your Texans football analysts, and today a little bit of your Texans insiders. I'm John Hickman alongside Brian Big Sarge Barfield. He has a big hat. Salute to you. He may join along with y'all with some tears of joy in terms of this news. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day and for being a part of the Locked On Podcast and Locked On Texans family, your team every day. Today, we will be talking about the Bobby Slowik news. He is gone. He is no longer here in Houston. He's been fired, let go from the Houston Texans as offensive coordinator. What are our expectations moving forward for the Houston Texans offensive coordinator position and offensive line coach? I can't wait for you guys to hear what I have to say about that. But just breaking down the firing of Bobby Slowik. In year two, things didn't work out. And this is probably one of those situations where for the Houston Texans, we got who we got. We believe in who we got. We cannot let anybody hold us back. So, Big Sarge, I can't wait to hear your thoughts on that. But today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Big Sarge.
Yes, sir.
Talk to us, man. It's happened. And this is a day after we kind of, in some ways, advocated for Bobby Slowik to come back. Boy, were we wrong in a sense. We just put that show out, but he's gone.
John, we always said that we can make a case for him and we can make a case against him.
Yeah.
And John, when I first learned earlier today that Bobby Slowik was going to be fired, the first thing that came to my mind was, how do I say goodbye?
Do you think Texas fans are saying goodbye?
To what we had, the good times that made us laugh. Always look back, John. Look, so when I found that out today, John, I wasn't surprised. I knew that the writing was on the wall. I knew that I think we discussed this here right after the Lions game is when Bobby Slowik started going down a slippery slope. That was one of the most embarrassing losses for the Houston Texans, especially with the way that the defense played, causing 5 turnovers, but not scoring any points in the second half. And so in looking bad in front of the nation. And so that started the decline for Bobby Slowik. And I looked at it and I said, the case that I made for Bobby is that he's new, on the job training. When you first started your job, you had to have some on the job training. You had 90 days, to learn everything that you need to learn. And when I first got into the military, I had to go to basic training to learn how to do what I was going to do in the Army. And so the thing that happened to Bobby on Friday was that, let me say this, John. The one thing that sped up Bobby's process, and this is what I was told from a source, was sped up the process to relieve Bobby of his duties. That's a better way of saying fire.
That's a better way to say it. That's more professional.
The thing that sped up Bobby being relieved from his duties from my source was the fact that quarterback coach Gerard Johnson is being looked at as offensive coordinator by different teams. Yeah. And the fact that Aaron Glenn got hired as the New York Jets coach and the relationship that those two have with each other, knowing that he could be, he could potentially get in Gerard's ear and convince him to leave CJ Stroud, somebody that he's been with since CJ was a teenager, somebody that he's known. CJ said during training camp, Gerard is one of the people who gave me the confidence to play the quarterback position. And so you don't, if you lose your offensive coordinator, you also don't want to lose that other voice. Now, I'm not saying that he has the job, but he's the top as far as internal is concerned. According to my source, he's the top candidate for that job. So the Houston Texans wanted to be one of the first teams to interview him to see if they can promote him and make him the offensive coordinator, but they're going to bring in other names, and I know we're going to talk about that a little bit more. But John, what was your first reaction when you found out that Bobby Slowik was relieved of his duty from the Houston Texans?
Well, my first reaction is, man, I just put this video up. but to break down the firing of Bobby Slowik from my point of view, and from a source I was told, the feeling around the building, was Bobby's inability to get away from his script.
Yeah,
we've specifically said on this show, and Brendan K. Scott of the Beat Block podcast, his script. And so when things started to break down, just his inability to get away from it, also citing his situational awareness. Now, this is one thing that I noticed early on. The sequencing in which he called plays really hurt the Houston Texans, and not being flexible, moving away from his system, which ultimately hindered CJ Stroud. And again, it goes back to conversations we've had all year, just seeing the difference in CJ Stroud in year 2 when things are not working. And you can accredit a lot of that to Bobby Slowik, especially in the first 10 weeks of the season. So is it a surprise? Wouldn't say it was a surprise or not. Just looking at the situation all together, it seems like the Houston Texans, from the top on down to the top of the floor, we will not allow anything to hinder us from getting to an AFC championship game. Super Bowl is always in the talks when you have a quarterback like you have a quarterback in CJ Stroud, a player like Will Anderson, the foundational pieces we've talked about all week. That's always a conversation. But for the Houston Texans, in their 20-year period, rank their teams. Rank the best. No matter who you have at number one, they've never got past the divisional round.
Exactly.
This was probably their best opportunity to do so this year. Through 4 quarters, even fighting up against the refs, this team was still in it. And you also look at, the offensive line issues. You also look at just the amount of times we're screaming to ourselves, hey, that play doesn't work. Or the overuse of bunch formations. Or on third downs, not having a third down reliable, consistent play call. Or when you know the pressure is there and you have a rookie right tackle out there and all of these different things going on at one time, not having the plays drawn up and ready to go to beat the pressure. Or the amount of times, and I talked about this on Twitter, how many times have we saw the offense get to the line of scrimmage and they only have a few seconds left to get the play off? So the lack of tempo, right? And CJ Stroud has constantly throughout this entire year, when he talks about great offenses, like what you call him, a football junkie, right?
Yeah.
He knows what great offenses are supposed to look like. He has cited the LA Rams on multiple occasions. He's talked about the Detroit Lions. And so from a quarterback standpoint, offensive coordinator not being able to do some of the things that your quarterback clearly wants to do. So if I can break down the firing of Bobby Slowik altogether, I'll just say he just was not the right guy for the job. You have loyalty to him in some areas. That's the reason why he's here, instead of Houston maybe bringing in an experienced play caller last year. In some areas, he did a damn good job.
Yeah.
But overall, when your company grow and their bottom line raises,
yep,
and the expectations are higher,
exactly.
You gotta make sure you have the right guy for the job. And unfortunately, that wasn't Bobby Slowik.
John, I'm going to take you back to training camp for just a second. And if I think that you and I have talked about this, I think that I've talked about this with some of my other colleagues as well. John, there's a difference in between hearing and listening. Like, you can hear a sound, right? You're supposed to listen to people talk. So if something falls, I can hear that, right? But when people talk, you're supposed to listen. And sometimes, don't get me wrong, when people are talking, it sounds like you're just hearing what they're saying. You're not listening and comprehending, right? And I always tell people, listen to comprehend, not to respond. There's a lot of people who listen to respond first before they comprehend. I preface all that to say this, John. Going back, and I kept saying this, wait a minute, something isn't right, because I'm listening to what Bobby's saying and I'm listening to what CJ said. Bobby said there's been a lot of times where CJ has had to save me from a bad play call.
I think he's always been all in on it. You know, he understands how valuable that is as a quarterback to just be able to stay on the field, get to third and manageables. And that's really what it's about. You know, it's my job to get number one as open as possible all the time. But, you know, not always going to do that. And when I'm wrong, how right can you make me? Are we wrong? Like, man, I just called a play and we lost 4 yards, or can I call a play and be wrong and we gained 6? You know, and that started towards the end of camp. That happened a lot. You know, he really is bought into staying on rhythm, getting the ball out on time, and you know, really getting it to our playmakers' hands as often as possible. And that's not easy to do. Like, you have to be very deliberate in how you approach every day to go put that into action, and it definitely has grown.
John, I love that clip. You know why I love that clip so much?
It foreshadowed the entire season.
And that's my question.
Yeah.
It's the question that I asked. But
Congrats.
John, that's what I'm saying. So you listen to what he just said there. In training, I mean, when they were in Ohio, he said, I'm intentionally and purposely making CJ hold the ball so he can go through all his reads. And my immediate reaction in my mind was, hey, man, CJ is a very good quarterback. He knows how to read the field. You don't need to purposely make him do that, because throughout training camp, it was just too much going on with, okay, somebody's open, but you don't want CJ to throw there. You don't want him to throw to the open man, which is what you're supposed to do in football. So you on the offense side of the ball, so you can move the chain, right? And so now you're saying CJ, I want him to hold the ball. CJ, has made me right when I've been wrong. That was from Bobby. And then you started to hear CJ talk about the pressure and making sure you maintain the pressure. And everybody is looking at me to do this, and everybody's looking at me to do that. And that automatically sent me back to what he was saying about Bobby. John, I don't know if you realize this or not, but watching CJ this past season, it never looked like he was having fun like he was in year one.
We all love going out to live events, and I'm sure Texan fans can't wait to fill up the NRG next stadium when they got a new offensive coordinator and a new offensive line coach on the sideline. And you can find out about great tickets on Gametime. Right now, Gametime has made it even easier to get tickets to your favorite events with a new feature called Gametime Picks. This feature filters out the fluff to show you incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off at Gametime. Download Gametime today. What time is it?
Game time.
Welcome back in, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers, to continue our conversation surrounding the expectations moving forward for whoever the Houston Texans bring in as their next offensive coordinator. What I do want to say is this: hey, you cannot have an offense that features C.J. Stroud as your quarterback and have the weapons and tools that the Houston Texans had, maybe not all together for 18 weeks, but at certain parts of the year, and have the 28th ranked red zone offense in the NFL. That's just not going to cut it. So the conversation right now, Sarge, is my expectations, you as well, because we talked about it on Friday's show, just bringing in an experienced play caller. And from my source, what I was told, the Houston Texans and their internal candidates right now, Clint Kubiak and Mike LaFleur. Now, what I know is you may not be a big fan of that decision.
Yeah, John, and the reason why I say that is, don't get me wrong, I like Mike LaFleur. I honestly and truly like Mike LaFleur. I like everything about Mike LaFleur. The problem is how much loyalty does he have to Bobby Slowik? Because I think that him and Bobby Slowik are really good friends, which would probably make him and D'Amico good friends as well. But where does his loyalty lie? Does it lie with the head coach he's with right now, or does it lie with D'Amico? Does it lie with Bobby and say, Bobby, look, he may feel some type of way from them letting Bobby go? And then when you look at Clint Kubiak, John, let me just stop right here, right? Because Kubiak is part of he's part of a tree, right? He's part of a tree. The floor, part of a tree. When you look at, how can I put this? Let me just say it this way, John. Is there anybody out there that's not a part of a tree? Because not all trees bear good fruit. Like, is there somebody
to add to that? I really like Darrell Bevel.
Yeah.
I like him a lot. Spent some time with the Seahawks in the early 2010s, with the Legion of Boom. That version of Seattle. At one point, coached him to 4 straight years. Has been a top 10 offense in the NFL. Helped Russ get to the heights and level he's at throughout the course of his career. I like him a lot. And also Byron Leftwich is out there as well.
Yeah, John. So I'm trying to look this thing up. And so when we're looking at Clint Kubiak, he's the offensive coordinator right now for the from H-Town. But of course his dad. But he's the offensive coordinator right now for the New Orleans Saints. And so when you look at where he's been, he was A&M as a quality control coach. He was a graduate assistant, spent some time in Minnesota, was in Denver, went back to Minnesota as the quarterbacks coach, went back to Minnesota. Was the offensive coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings and was with San Francisco as their passing game coordinator before he got the offensive coordinator position in New Orleans. The thing that worries me, John, the thing that worries me is this San Francisco 49ers in 2023 as the passing game coordinator. Now, and the reason why it does, John, let me take you back to a time, I'm going to take you back to a game, something that's very vivid in your memory. I wouldn't be surprised if you didn't watch this game at least once every 2 to 3 months, just because of the way that the New England Patriots seasons have gone these last couple of years, the Brady-less years and how it's gone since since that team lost Tom Brady. John, you remember the 28-3 comeback against the Atlanta Falcons? You remember that game? You remember that game, John? There was a drive where Matt Ryan said that they only needed to do was to just keep running the ball, kick a field goal, and that would have put them up 31-3. But during that drive, a lot happened. I think that they had a sack. I think they had a penalty. I think that they had a incomplete pass, and then they ended up not getting any points on that drive. So Matt Ryan was asked later on, hey, how come you didn't just run the ball 3 times and you were in field goal position? You took yourselves out of field goal position because you lost yards. Why didn't you just run the ball 3 times and then kick the field goal? And Matt Ryan said, I was having an issue because the plays were taking too long to get into me. And once they got into me, I didn't have enough time to audible. And even if I did want to audible, the package that was on the field, I couldn't audible into anything because of the personnel that was on the field. John, do you remember who the offensive coordinator was for the Atlanta Falcons during that Super Bowl?
Oh, Kyle
Shanahan, right? John, not having enough time to get to the line and make changes and do audibles, having the plays come in too long, spending too much time in the huddle. Who does that sound like, John?
Oh, Bobby
Slowik. Bobby Slowik was where? In San Francisco. So when you look at the San Francisco 49ers, right? One thing that has to happen for the San Francisco 49ers, everything has to be clicking for them to look good. They sustained injuries this year. They did not look good, right? When the Houston Texans sustained injuries, they did not look good. When the New Orleans Saints sustained injuries, they did not look good. So, John, I don't really want to see anybody else from the Kyle Shanahan tree because you're not getting anything but another Bobby Slowik. You're getting nothing but a play caller who's probably going to take a lot of time, who's probably going to not allow CJ to audible. And if you get Kubiak, he may be just like his father was and wouldn't allow Matt Schaub to audible. So I don't want to see that Shanahan tree in Houston anymore, because every time somebody on that Shanahan tree goes through adversity, the next thing you know, you look around and you're saying, oh, well, you got to have everything perfect in order for you to make your offense look good. I don't want that, John. I'm going to tell you, I haven't had time to really study everything, but a quick name that I want to throw out there, Cliff Kingsbury, from the offensive coordinator for the Washington Commanders.
Here's the thing about Cliff. Here's the thing about Chip Kelly. And by the way, D'Amico Ryans has said that Chip Kelly played a big role into him becoming a head coach.
In his introductory
a coach in his introductory press conference gave Chip Kelly a lot of love. And so I said before, hey, I don't think Chip is going to leave Ohio State. Why would he?
Unless I wouldn't want him here
back
anyway.
to be. But I'm looking at, okay, you believe, not believe, but you like Cliff Kingsbury. I'm looking at guys and I'm looking at the situations that they're currently in. I'm thinking to myself, why would they leave? I think Cliff is in a situation where, why would I leave? My quarterback is arguably the best quarterback in the NFC right now. Why would he leave? But but moving forward, if this is the type of success Jaden Daniels had under Cliff, why would he leave? Why would Chip Kelly leave? And so situation matters to me.
You mean Cliff leave?
No, yeah, I'm sorry. Why would Cliff leave? Why would Chip leave? Mike LaFleur is a guy that, under the Kyle Shanahan tree as well, but right now he's over with the Rams.
That's a tree that I need to pick fruit from.
The McVay tree.
Yes.
And so with Mike LaFleur, if I'm Houston, do I go with Mike? Do I go with Nick Haley, who has spent time under both Sean McVay and Josh McDaniels in the New England Patriots? And so that's a guy that I'm sure has so much experience in terms of being able to recognize, read, and react when it's be a play caller.
John, let me ask you a question real quick. So the Sean McVay tree, is that where Kevin O'Connell came from?
I believe so. I love Kevin O'Connell too, man.
Is that
I think Sean McVay has a better tree than Kyle Shanahan, by the way.
Who's the head coach for the Cincinnati Bengals?
I forget his name off the top of my head.
What tree did he come from?
Was it the McVay tree?
Exactly. And look, how did Cliff Kingsbury get his start in the NFL? Because he had good hair and he shook Sean McVay's hand. Yeah. Also, Cliff Kingsbury, look at what he's done with Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders this year. I mean, there's a quarterback that's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer who's going to win the Super Bowl 3 times in a row that learned under Cliff Kingsbury's tutelage. So we know that he knows how to work with quarterbacks. Yeah. That's all I'm saying.
It's all about situation to me, man. And for Houston, what I would ask the offensive coordinators, potential offensive coordinators that they're going to interview, and I think starting off with Gerard Johnson, what would you have done with the roster, how it's currently put together? Let's not worry about free agency. Let's not worry about the draft. The last time we played football, when we didn't have Stephon, when we didn't have Tank Dell, what will you have done? And show us how you would have beaten some of these coverages. Show us how you would have took on some of these the pressure some of these defenses were able to cause because of the lackluster offensive line play. So that would be my first question to any of these guys: Sean McVay, Mike LaFleur.
Well, not Sean McVay because he ain't going nowhere.
No, I'm sorry, not Sean McVay. Gerard Johnson, Mike LaFleur, Clint Kubiak. Even if it's
Cliff Kingsbury. I'm telling you, John, he's done more with less.
Leaving, man.
You don't know, John. He's lived in Texas. He knows there's no state tax here. He lives in the DMV area. That weather probably does terrible for his hair. So come on back here. You know how to deal with the humidity. You can make money. I would give him, I would throw money at Cliff Kingsbury for him to come back. The proof is in the pudding, John. I know.
I just don't see it happening. And I think realistically, we got to look at the situations that make sense for not only the team, but the guy that they're going to hire. We're going to continue to cover this. I think Houston Texans fans across the city of Houston, nationwide, are rejoicing. I seen somebody say, I'm throwing something on the grill. So congratulations to you guys. A lot of you guys want Bobby out. He's out. But now the question is, who do the Houston Texans bring in? And whoever they bring in, will they be able to bring in a coach that can help fix this offensive line or schematically play to the strengths of the offensive line that they have into the building? Maybe they have an upgraded wide receiver coach. Maybe there's an upgraded tight end coach. All of that matters and whoever they bring in, they should be able to pick their own staff. Thank you for watching today's episode. But before we leave out, we got to give you guys a little piece of the pie. Make you some extra money, right?
Yes, sir.
And to do that, you can do it over at Prize Picks. It is playoff time. We don't got a lot of football left, guys. And if you like me, you want to make the most of these last moments that we have with football. No more college football. We're hanging on a deal life with the NFL. That's where Prize Picks comes in. If you love football and want a chance to win real money while watching the games, Prize Picks is the best place for you. It's the best way to turn your sports opinions into cash with daily fantasy player projections. You pick more or less on player stat totals like total passing yards, rushing touchdowns, or receptions for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your money. You can make your picks in less than 60 seconds. And whether you're looking for a flex play to boost your payout or you want to cash out quickly, Prize Picks has got you covered. With over 10 million members and billions in winnings, it's clear the people love this platform. Here's a special offer for our listeners as you guys celebrate Bobby Slowik no longer being in Houston. Download the app and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's Prize Picks. Run your game. Thank y'all for watching today's episode. Please be sure to subscribe, like, and comment on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcast. Follow me on Twitter at John_Hickman12.
Follow me on the app formerly known as Twitter at Big Star Sports with a Z at the end.
Until next time, ladies and gentlemen.
We're going to miss you, Bobby. Bobo. We love you, Bobby. We love you.